everyone, class is now in session. I will be your professor for today. You can refer to me as 138 MMA. Today in class, we are going to go over the entire UFC Vegas 76 card. We're going to cover every single fight on the card. We're going to break each one down in detail, go over the pros and cons of each fighter, methods of victory for either fighter, and my final pick and prediction for each of the fights. But before we get into that, you can follow me on Twitter at 138MMA, Tapology if you'd like to see all my picks, 138MMA as well, and even better, there's a couple of things that you can do to support the channel financially. You can find me over on patreon.com/138MMA, or even better, because it's nice and easy for you, you can just sign up right here on YouTube with the new channel memberships. Now you're going to get more content over on patreon.com/138MMA, but if you just want to support the channel, YouTube right here, there's the little join button right by this video. You can show your support by joining the channel. It's only $2.99. You get these little badges that show how long you've been part of the channel, supporting the channel, all that good stuff. And you even get some cool emojis that you can use on the videos and the comments and when I start doing live streams, which is coming up pretty soon. And I'll give you an announcement about that and how we can get to that shortly. Now, before we waste any more time, let's go ahead and jump right into these picks right after this.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, 138 proudly brings to you the hottest picks in the world.
Find ourselves at lightweight. We have Kutateladze taking on Brener. Now, Brener was originally slated to take on another opponent, and in steps Kutateladze, who originally had another matchup prior, and then I believe he had some visa issues or something like that, and so his opponent didn't end up getting to fight him. And now here he is taking on Brener on short notice. So kind of a weird mixed bag, and somehow we ended up with this this jumbled matchup, and here we are. Brenner's 3-2 in his last 5, 4-1 for the Kutateladze side. In this one here, let's start with the Brener side. He has solid jiu-jitsu, and something I like about his jiu-jitsu is he's very active off his back. He's looking for submissions, and if he doesn't get the submission, well, what's he going to do? He's going to try to use that to sweep. He opens up these sweeps and submission attempts with the use of his elbows, and his primary go-to is going to be the armbar. He's got quite a few wins via armbar. He's very quick with it, things like that. The armbar is what he's looking for, okay? But if he gets on top of you, he's going to start using those elbows heavy until you start giving him an arm, and that's when he starts looking for that armbar. He can use it off his back as well, but you know what I mean. That's the idea. Striking. He's not the best striker, but he's got pretty good volume. He's just going to move forward and throw a ton of volume. And basically, he's just going to come up with the top of the hands and throw knees up the middle in his mid combination. So he's going to start mixing those knees in while he's throwing. The problem is he doesn't have a whole lot of striking defense, and that could be a big problem here. He does lack the open mat takedowns that a guy with this good of jiu-jitsu could really benefit from, but he does have decent trips from the clinch. So if he gets into the clinch, he's got a shot at getting the fight to the mat. However, Kutateladze, we're going to go to that side. We're going to start with his clinch game because he's very dangerous in the clinch, works the elbows well. He'll get you in that clinch and then just mix those elbows straight across, come up the middle if he has to. So he's working those elbows well from that clinch, which is where the takedown is going to need to come from for Brener. In the striking department, he's going to be far better than Brener. He's going to have a solid dynamic attack when he works his striking. He can counter-strike as well, and on a guy that's going to come through and just throw a ton of volume, those counters are going to be there. He's going to mix his combinations as well, and he's going to mix up his strikes, whether that be knees, elbows, punches, or kicks. He's going to mix them together in striking combinations, and that's going to make his striking quite a bit more complete than a guy like Brener. On the mat, though, he's going to have a disadvantage in the jiu-jitsu department, but he does have decent wrestling, and he will sometimes mix in his own takedowns to keep his opponents guessing because the striking is his best asset to his game. However, I don't think that's going to be his path in this fight. The thing I want to highlight, though, is that he does have good takedown defense, and when he does get taken down, he pops right back to his feet fairly quickly. In this matchup, I think Kutateladze has to be the pick. I think he's the most, he's the more, I don't want to say well-rounded striker. He probably, or fighter, I mean, he probably is, but the striking is going to be his best path to victory. I think Brenner's going to have a heck of a time trying to stop getting countered, or stop from getting countered, and I think Brenner's going to have a really difficult time getting the fight to the mat. If he does, he's got a shot. Don't get me wrong, that jiu-jitsu is legit. He can get a hold of an arm, etc. But I think Kutateladze has more advantages. I think the areas in which Brener needs to get the fight to the mat, Kutateladze can do well enough to stop that and then keep the fight where he wants it. So Kutateladze is the pick. Let me know what you guys have. I'd love to hear from you, and I will see you in the next fight. At heavyweight here, we have Alexander Romanov taking on Ivanov. Both guys are kind of hit or miss right now. We've got 3-2 in the last 5 for Romanov. He looked really good on the come up, and then got a couple of bad losses where he just didn't look good at all. And then for Ivanov, you never know what you're gonna get. The guy doesn't have a ton of volume, and he's kind of there. He's hard to put away. but he doesn't do enough to win fights a lot of the time. So this is a really tough one to predict. If anybody's really confident in this, they're either lying to you or have no idea, and they just pick somebody because they watched like a highlight reel or something. I don't understand how you could be confident in this. Let's start with Ivanov. The guy's a good wrestler. He's very difficult to take down. He just kind of grinds guys out. Good top pressure. Not a whole lot of upside as far as like finishing or anything like that. He's got good striking, decent power, can eat a shot from anybody. He's got an iron chin, but he doesn't do anything. He's got low volume, just kind of there, okay? So for Ivanov, he's got the skills, but just doesn't do enough. And then for Romanov, it's the opposite. He does too much. He's a very fast starter with no cardio to go through the whole fight. So he does a lot really early on, and then he's just toast. So the dude's got strong wrestling, good takedowns, huge slams, and he just kind of mauls his opponents. And he's going to just try to get on top, get that pressure, and just start landing ground and pound until the ref comes in. It's not usually the prettiest ground and pound, but it gets the job done. On the feet, his striking is sloppy, but it is pretty powerful. I mean, he's a heavyweight, so what do you expect? Yeah, guys, I don't know. I like the over 1.5 because I think that even if Romanov is able to take this fight to the mat, get on top, and start landing shots, Ivanov's hard enough to put away that I think it's going to make it through the first round. And after the first round, I don't think Romanov is going to have any cardio left. So second round comes down to, could be either guy. We just got to make it 2.5 minutes before we get a finish, and we make it in the overs because it's an over 1.5. I believe when I saw it was at minus 190. I like the over 1.5. I don't like picking either fighter in this. Like I said, anybody that says they're confident in this, I feel like they're lying to you. This is a hard fight to predict because either Romanov goes in there, the ref says, oh, quick trigger, we're going to jump on this, he's landing shots, and then stops the fight. Or what most likely happens is it goes over 1.5, and then the first 1.5 go to Romanov, and the second 1.5 go to Ivanov, and then we just get like I don't know, let's see what the judges think. And they can't do their jobs. We've seen him plenty of times. So it's a tough one. I'm going to take Ivanov. I think he's going to win rounds 2 and 3 and get a decision. But I don't know, guys. This one's terrible. This is a horrible fight to pick. Let me know what you guys think. I'd love to hear it. And if you are confident in this, let me know why, because I don't understand it a bit. I'd love to hear your opinion. I'll see you in the next matchup in the featherweight division. We have Weston Wilson making his short notice UFC debut. He's going to take on Joe Anderson Brito, who was originally on this card, had an opponent fall out. In steps Weston Wilson. Both guys 4-1 in their last 5. Wilson is the much taller fighter at 6'1", as opposed to the 5'8". The reach is very similar. I believe it's like 72 and 73 inches, something like that. But the reach is very similar. The height is the difference. Obviously, Brito's got long arms, and Weston Wilson has normal arms. So there's that. Let's go ahead and start with the Weston Wilson side because he's the new commodity to the UFC. A lot of you are not going to be familiar with Weston Wilson. So what he is a decent karate striker. He's been training with Wonder Boy over at his camp or whatever. Obviously, learning karate from Wonder Boy is going to be a good advantage. So he has that. Long, straight shots, and he likes to blitz in. Something that we can do now with our new setup is I can kind of demonstrate what I'm talking about a little bit. So when he comes in, he throws these big, straight shots as he comes across, and he's just going to kind of step with his shots and keep changing what foot's in front as he's trying to walk guys down and just kind of 1-2, 1-2, 1-2. He uses those in his blitz, but he can also use them at range and just stay there from that karate stance, like so. He has an active lead leg, so he's picking that lead leg up and throwing his kicks. He's hitting the leg of his opponent, going to the body, going up to the head. He's doing all these things pretty quick off the lead leg, and he stays light on his toes the whole time, just kind of bouncing, keeping it light. But the problem is he does keep those hands low, and something you don't want to do against a guy like Joe Anderson Brito is keep your hands low. Something to keep in mind when you're talking about Weston Wilson here. On the ground, though, he's got pretty good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He uses his length really well, similar to kind of like a less polished version of a Chase Hooper in his grappling. He doesn't quite get to where he can just kind of spider his way to your back and just kind of crawl over you like he's climbing up a web. But he does still have that ability. He also kind of works in the choking arms, like I always mention. He's got them choking arms, those long, skinny ones, so he can slip them under your neck and catch you there. He is pretty darn good on the mat. Now he's going up against a guy in Joe Anderson Brito, who's a very good striker. He's gonna be a fast starter. He's gonna come forward with pressure, but we know he fades as the fight goes on because we know that Joe Anderson Brito comes out like a freight train, but that freight train runs out of gas because, or coal. I guess it'd be probably running on coal, huh? He runs out of coal because he's burning it as fast as he can to get this fight over with. So he's a good striker, though. Like I said, he's very powerful and lands a solid leg kick. And on a guy that stands in that karate stance here, sure, he's light on his toes, but there's an opening for that leg that's out front. Easier to reach for a guy like Brito. He's going to strike while he's moving forward as well. He's not going to like plant and throw. He's just going to keep throwing those shots and working his opponent up against the cage. Once he gets his opponent up against the cage, well, what's he going to do? Well, he's going to start looking for trips and takedowns from there. The problem is sometimes he does overcommit to his strikes, and a guy like Wilson is going to be able to capitalize on that because he is quick on the strikes. He has that active lead leg, like I said. Say, Brito overcommits on a strike, throwing a big heavy bomb. Well, his head's down here, gets kicked in the face. It's definitely a likely outcome at least once in this matchup unless Brito flattens him in the first strike. If it does get to the mat, though, Brito's very good on the ground. He's able to get to the back, start looking for that rear naked choke fairly quickly. That's just kind of what he does. A lot of times he'll drop guys and then use his jiu-jitsu from there, but other times he gets them up against the cage by using those strikes, pressuring them there, and then working the takedown, getting that going. For me, in this matchup, I think the pick is very clear. I think you have to go Joe Anderson Brito here. Obviously, it's not short notice for him. I mean, sure, it's a new opponent, but he was expecting this fight or expecting a fight. Joe Anderson Brito hits very hard. He's not losing very many fights. Obviously, he's only lost 3 in his career. He's coming in 4-1 in his last 5. So is Wilson, but it's outside the UFC. It's a lot different. Brito's got to be the pick. I'm taking Brito. Let me know what you guys have. I'd love to hear your opinion, and we will see you in the flyweight matchup here. We have Ivana Petrovic taking on Luana Carolina. Petrovic is undefeated, 6-0, making her UFC debut. She's taking on Luana Carolina, who is 2-3 in her last 5 fights. For Carolina, she is a good striker with a lot of volume, and that's particularly where she's going to want to keep the fight, is in striking range. If she does get to the tie clinch, however, she's very solid here, and I think she's actually better in the clinch than she is in the open mat, but she's probably going to want to keep it at range for other reasons, and we'll cover that in a moment. Now, when she does get in the tie clinch, she does have very good knees, very good elbows, works those very well. She has a decent initial takedown defense, but once you get her down, she's just kind of stuck. She's stuck, she can't do anything off her back, and she just kind of gets held there. And that is always a big red flag for me when picking fighters, especially when they're going up against someone who is a good wrestler. So on the other side, we have Ivana Petrovic. Petrovic is a very good wrestler. She has the body lock takedowns that she typically uses. The body lock is the go-to. She has heavy elbows with the ground and pound, and she's always looking to advance position because of those elbows. What she does, she gets the fight to the mat, starts working her way to advanced position. When she gets to mount, she's going to start raining down some of the heaviest elbows you're going to see at the women's flyweight division. Obviously, you don't want to eat those elbows. So her opponent then rolls over to try to work to get back to her feet, giving up her back. Now, then what happens? Well, she goes right for that rear naked choke, and that's how she did, I think, 3 of her 6 wins, I think, are that almost the exact same process. And I think that process is going to work here. So for me, I think the pick has to be Petrovic, and I think it's by rear naked choke, honestly. There's a chance that it's going to be a TKO, because the elbows are coming. But I think Carolina's going to roll over and give up her back, and I think that's when the rear naked choke sets in. It might... Obviously, Petrovic is a decent-sized favorite right now in her UFC debut, which could scare you. If you can get a good number on the inside the distance, I might take that. I wouldn't play submission or TKO because it just kind of depends if Carolina wants to roll over or not. We don't really know. But I don't think Carolina can get this one done. I know she has that decent takedown defense, but I think it only is going to take one as long as she can get it with a minute and a half in the round. I think Petrovic is going to be able to land a lot of elbows, and I think that's going to be it for Carolina. So for me, the clear pick is Petrovic. Let me know what you have, and I will see you in the next one. Somehow we found ourselves in the women's featherweight division where we have Yana Santos taking on Rosa. For those of you that have already liked this video, thank you guys so much. Your support is appreciated more than you know. For those of you that haven't, well, hopefully we can get that like coming because of this breakdown right here that I'm about to do in the women's featherweight division. I feel like that deserves a like. Rosa, she's 3-2 in her last 5 fights, 2-3 for Santos. This is an interesting matchup because both ladies are pretty good in their striking. We'll start with Rosa. She's a good striker with decent power, and most of the time she has good volume. Sometimes, I don't know, sometimes that just doesn't compute or whatever, and she just doesn't. But most of the time, she has good volume. And a lot of times, she's willing to eat one to give one because she does hit harder than most of the ladies in the division. Now, real quick, we're going to jump over to the Santos side and cover her striking because I think that's the better way to do this for this fight. She has good striking. She's going to throw in combination and mix her punches and kicks together, which I do really like from Santos. And she does have pretty much good volume all the time unless she's being controlled somewhere. But her power is lacking. So more consistent volume, mixing in the combinations a little bit better. Better power and, willing to eat one to give one. That's kind of what we're getting in the striking. When it comes to the grappling, we got decent wrestling on the Santos side. She's going to mix takedowns in with her striking and everything like that, but the cage push is where she's going to try to get this fight most likely because she can get taken down and she can be controlled, but if she's pushing someone up against the cage, she's pretty comfortable there and she's able to win minutes. Now, for the Rosa side, She has good topside grappling. If she can get on top of Santos, I do think she can keep the fight there and stay there. However, she also can get held down if she's taken down and also gets held up against the cage. Where do I think this fight goes? Well, I think Santos is going to land the better volume in the striking department, and I think Rosa's going to land the better power shots. Really, I think the one who gets to control up against the cage or on top on the grappling exchanges is going to be able to control the remainder of the round from there. And I do think, for me, I'm going to slight lean on the Yana Santos side. Now, you can't be mega confident in this because Santos, obviously, she's 2-3 in her last 5, so she hasn't looked the best as of late. And Rosa, I mean, she's 3-2 in her last 5, which isn't bad, I guess, but, like, she's also, they both have the same problem. So you can't feel super confident in it because neither of them excels in any area that the other one doesn't. So they pretty much have the same skill set, just which one's better at that skill set, kind of, is my reasoning here. So bear with me. I'm going to take Yana Santos, but don't be betting this fight unless you're betting the over because it's probably going to decision. That's a safe bet. Let me know what you guys think. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll see you in the next fight. Welterweight for the return of Kevin Lee, taking on Fakhretdinov. For Renat, he is 5-0 in his last 5. Kevin Lee with that 2-3. Doesn't look that great on the last 5. But Kevin Lee has been fighting a lot better competition than Fakhretdinov. That's just the way that goes. So in this one here, let's start with Fakhretdinov. Let's go ahead and start with him. So he is a solid wrestler with a good takedown volume. He's just throwing takedowns, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. 5 of them in a round if he needs to. 6 of them in a round if he needs to. He's looking for the takedowns, and once he gets it, he wants to just get on top, use that pressure, start landing ground and pound with a high volume of ground and pound. If he doesn't get the takedown, he's going to push you up against the cage, and he's just going to be nasty up there, whether he's just grinding you out, using his head to push, throwing shots, elbows, whatever he's got to do. And he's going to start reaping the legs. So if the initial takedown fails up against the cage, he's going to start reaping those legs, trying to get you to fall down that way. The one thing I don't like about Fakhretdinov's wrestling is in the open mat, his takedown, his head position. So he just kind of ducks his head and like goes forward with his head. It's not a good idea. It's horrible. I don't know why Brian Battle wasn't able to take advantage of it in the last fight. Probably because it was short notice, but it's a glaring weakness he has. Now, it's worked out really well for him because obviously he's 21-2 in his career. So it's worked out really well for him so far. But unless he fixes that, which he has not to this point from any of his fights previous, it is a big problem. Now, in the striking, he's very powerful but super unpolished. He's swinging wild strikes, but when he hits you, he does hit pretty hard. In fact, that's how it actually got him to the UFC. It was Dana White's looking for a fight, and he knocked a guy out. Former UFC guy, golly gee whiz, who is that? You know what? Drop it in the comments and let me know. I forget off the top of my head. But his cardio is pretty darn good. He can keep that takedown, that wrestling pressure up for 3 rounds when he needs to, and it's not a problem. Now, he's going up against a solid wrestler in Kevin Lee, okay? Now, Kevin Lee wrestles with he uses that chain wrestling style, and what he's going to do is he's going to chain single and double leg takedowns together. He's going to look for the double leg. Oh, that's not working. We're going to go to the single leg. Oh, that's not working. We're going back to the double, etc. He's going to do that, and once he gets the fight to the mat, he's going to work to advanced position. Sometimes he'll do that up against the cage. If the single and double isn't working, he's going to look to advanced position by taking the back, something like that. If he does get it to the mat, he has pretty solid ground and pound. What he's trying to do with his ground and pound is he's trying to set up the rear naked choke. He's trying to land shots, get the opponent to roll over, and give him that rear naked choke. That's what he's going to look for. Now, maybe he'll get the TKO. More likely than not, you're going to turn over, give him the rear naked choke, and that's what he's looking for. Now, here's the deal. Kevin Lee has very good takedown defense because with guys like Fakhretdinov who are going to try to shoot the takedown, that initial takedown isn't going to work against a guy like Kevin Lee who has such good takedown defense. So he's going to try and drive Kevin Lee to the fence. Kevin Lee's takedown defense is even better against the fence. He's good at reversing takedowns as well and getting on top of his opponents when they shoot the takedown, and he then says, nope, counters it, good to go. He's also excellent in the scramble. If the fight does hit the mat, he's going to try to make that scramble quickly so he can maybe end up on top there. Now, the thing is, his cardio has faded on him in the past quite a few times. So all these things are much better early in the fight, and later in the fight, not as much. He does have decent striking, but it's not really a big part of his game. He is primarily a wrestler, so as Fakhretdinov here. So in this one, I think it's wrestler versus wrestler. It should be a good match. Here's the deal. I think this is a close fight. I really do. I think the momentum's on the side of Fakhretdinov. Kevin Lee just got that win over Diego Sanchez over at Eagle FC, like a year ago maybe. He didn't look the best, but he got the win. And I think he didn't look the best because we kind of haven't seen a lot out of Diego Sanchez lately, and Kevin Lee kind of, we thought he was going to go in there and just destroy Diego Sanchez, which he did not. I'm going to take Kevin Lee as the underdog here, though, because I think Fakhretdinov is going to, his main path to victory is the wrestling. I think he's going to struggle early on with a guy like Kevin Lee, and I think Kevin Lee is going to be able to reverse the takedown, get on top, at least bank the first round by stuffing the takedowns and getting on top in his own right for Kevin Lee. So for me, I think that Lee is going to be able to get it done. I did bet him earlier, maybe like 2 weeks ago when I first saw the line. He's a big underdog. The line has since closed in a ton, and if I can get Fakhretdinov at plus money, you bet your behind that I'm going to be doing that. If the lines keep getting closer and maybe he ends up at plus 100 even, I'll jump on that and even out my bet, because then I still think Kevin Lee wins, but then it's safe and it's called free money. You always take the free money. Now, do I think that's going to happen? Probably not. I'll stick with the Kevin Lee bet. I'm not as confident as I was when I went, because earlier I thought, oh, Kevin Lee, dude's a fantastic wrestler. But then I went back and rewatched that Diego Sanchez fight, and I was like, man, I don't know. Fakhretdinov is not too bad. But I still think that because the wrestling is the best path to victory for Fakhretdinov, I know I'm going a little bit long here. I wanted to point out why this is, that I was more confident and then became less confident. I think Kevin Lee still has the stylistic advantage here. I think he's going to be the better wrestler, and I think he's going to get it done. So Kevin Lee's the pick. I did place a bet on it, but it's not my most confident bet in the world. So let me know what you guys think. Do you think Kevin Lee's going to get it done, or do you think he's just kind of done? He's in that tweener size. He should be like a 160-pounder or 165-pounder. So he's now up at 170. Like, what do you guys think? I'd love to hear your opinion. I know a lot of people are on Fakhretdinov this week, but I'd love to hear what you thought. And I'll see you next time. In the middleweight division, we have Nursultan Ruziboev stepping in short notice. He's stepping in for Abdul Razak Al Hassan, who has dropped out, to take on Bruno Ferreira, which is a tough ask to step in on short notice against. However, Ruziboev has the record to be a guy that can step in there on that short notice and look like he belongs. The dude has 34 wins in his pro career and only 8 losses. That's impressive. 5-0 in the last 5. He's stepping in against a guy who has much less experience than him. I mean, Ruziboev's got what? 44 fights, something like that? 44 fights, if my math's right, against 10 fights over here for Ferreira. Ferreira, though, he is 5-0 in his last 5 because he's undefeated overall. So there is that caveat to it. Ruziboev, 6'4", 5'10" on the Ferreira side. Obviously, that reach and that height is going to be on the Ruziboev side, but I couldn't find his exact reach measurements, so we're just going with the height. And you can kind of assume that a 6'4" person has a longer reach than a person that's 5'10", more often than not. Let's break these guys down from starting with the Bruno Ferreira side. The dude has very powerful striking, and he sets up these heavy hands that he has with feints. So he's feinting his shots, maybe faking a takedown, and he's going to come in with the shot that he wants to hit you with when you're not sure, because you're kind of looking for the other ones, and those feints are setting him up, and he does it really well. He also switches stances a lot, and when he's switching his stance, he works well from both sides. In addition, he can move in and out of the pocket with ease, step in, land his shots, get back out before he's hit. He does that pretty well. So we've seen that in the Contender Series fight, as well as when he fought against Gregory Rodriguez, where he ended up putting him out. The dude also hits like a truck, so you got to remember that. Every time he's getting into that pocket, you're basically getting hit by a truck. So there's that. In the grappling department, Ferreira is very, he's not super tested there, is from what I've seen. On the regional scene, he ended up in the grappling department a few times, but usually he's on top and just land a nasty ground and pound. There's that. He should be able to keep it standing here, though. Ruziboev does not seem to have a ton of takedowns. He has some, don't get me wrong. I watched some of his takedowns, but a lot of times guys are taking him down and he's then reversing position. His takedown defense isn't very good, but like I said, he reverses the position. He's got good sweeps. He works to advance position once he does get on top, and he's going to start looking for the submission. To get to the submission, a lot of times he's throwing a lot of ground and pound, not anything heavy, not like we're looking at the Ferreira side where he's throwing heavy hammers. It's going to be more of the just kind of the volume of shots to get you to turn over or move an arm or whatever, so he can get a hold of whatever he wants to get a hold of. In the striking, he's decent. He's got long, kind of unorthodox straight shots, and he kind of, obviously being 6'4", he's able to hit a lot of guys before they can get in range of him. He's got pretty good volume, but when he backs up, because he's so tall, a lot of times he's got his hands down here, and he'll just kind of back up out of the pocket, and that's not something you want to do against a guy that hits like Ferreira. For me, I feel like Ferreira's getting this done. I think the short notice is just too much for Ruziboev. I think he's got a shot later in, maybe after this matchup where he could get matched up with somebody not taking on short notice, not be a guy that's as dangerous as Ferreira. I think Ferreira's going to get this one done. I think he's probably going to get it done by knockout, and if he does, it's probably going to be pretty early. So for me, give me Ferreira here. I could be proven wrong. Maybe this guy is a little bit better than I'm giving him credit for on short notice, but I think Ferreira should be able to go out there, come forward, dart in and out a few times, get those feints going, and land a big shot and get the knockout. That's where I'm at. Let me know what you're thinking, and I will see you in the next fight. We've got a very fun matchup here in the lightweight division. If you haven't cracked open that first root beer of the night, we got to be starting with this fight right here, because this is going to be a fun one that you're going to want to kick back and enjoy. We have Bonfim. He is taking on Benoit Saint-Denis. For Saint-Denis, 4-1 in the last 5. In fact, his only loss in his career is to Eliseo Zaleski dos Santos, and that's up at welterweight. So, only loss, up a weight class. He took it on short notice against an established UFC fighter. So, you kind of give him a pass on it. I mean, sure, he didn't look great in that fight, but he did show a lot of durability. For Bonfim, he's 5-0 in the last 5. His last loss, he was a teenager, and he lost to Renato Moicano way back on the Brazilian regional scene. So both of these guys, a ton of potential. Both of these guys, very good prospects. Let's break this one down and kind of see where this lands. But for me, this is a fight that I'm going to want to kick back and enjoy rather than sit there and sweat. But hey, we'll figure out if that's the case for you. For Bonfim, we're going to start with him here. He is a solid striker with a ton of power. He's got good countering ability and the timing on the counters, as well as timing his combinations. Top level, okay? The guy's very good in that. The thing I like about him is the flying knee, or one of the other things I like about him anyway. My coach used to always tell me, he would say that you can't block a flying knee. And that's kind of true, because if you try to block a flying knee, guess what? It's still getting through. You're still feeling the impact. It's still going to land a lot of force. So you have to get out of the way of a flying knee. And a lot of times what Bonfim is going to do is he's going to get guys up against the cage and throw that flying knee at them, much like he did to Terrence McKinney, but he's done that a ton on the regional scene as well. Whether it lands or not, whether they get out of the way or not, if you get them up against the cage first, they don't have a whole lot of places they can go, because your instinct is to want to go backwards to get out of the way of a flying knee. And guess what? You can't do that if the cage is there. So a lot of times Bonfim is going to be using that pressure that he has, landing those big power shots, ripping the body, things like that. And then he's going to get you up against the cage and launch that flying knee. And guess what? If you can't get out of the way of it, it's just, you're going to sleep. We saw it happen to poor Terrence McKinney when he got knocked out with that. That flying knee is deadly. Now, do I think that Benoit Saint-Denis can get out of the way of that? Maybe. He's also very durable, so who knows? Maybe it won't put him out. But I don't like anybody's odds eating a flying knee. So I do really like that out of him. It's not like one of those flying knees you see from a lot of guys where they're just throwing it and there's no chance it's going to land. So anyway, love the striking of Bonfim. If it gets to the mat, his jiu-jitsu is also very, very impressive. He has nasty ground and pound that he uses to set up his submission attempts, but he's got a wide array of submissions that he can use. So when he's looking for these attempts, what he's going to do is he's going to start landing some big, heavy shots on you. Maybe you roll over, give him a rear naked choke. Maybe you put an arm up and let him get a hold of one of your arms for an arm bar. Maybe you're starting to resist and he's going to have to drop back, grab a leg. He can do any of those things. The one thing I don't like, and I don't think he's going to do it in this matchup, but I need to point it out anyway just in case, is that occasionally you will see him pull guard, at least we did on the regional scene. And that's something I really don't like for fighters in general, is pulling guard. I mean, we saw Cody Brundage do it, 3 times just last Saturday? It was a horrible idea the first time, even worse the second time, and it was just completely irresponsible as a fighter to do it the third time, but he did it anyway. I hate it when people pull guard. There's very, 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 very few occasions where it's a good idea to pull guard. Bonfim doesn't do it much, but he does do it sometimes, and when he does do it, it usually is a good idea because it usually works out for him, but there's been a couple of times where it didn't, and he had to then regain position. It's just something I don't like. So, especially against a grappler like Benoit Saint-Denis. I don't think he's going to do it, but there we go. Now, his takedown defense is pretty good, and he's good about making guys pay for failed takedown attempts. So what happens is after he stuffs that takedown, he comes back with a heavy shot on somebody before they're able to, really regain their footing, regain their balance, things like that. So if you try to shoot a takedown on Bonfim and you're not successful, he's not letting you off the hook, stuffing it and then resetting and then getting back to it. No, he's stuffing that takedown and he's coming back with a shot because he wants to make it so you realize, I better not try that again unless I'm really confident because I'm going to eat another punch if I do that. But for Saint-Denis, the dude is a very, very solid grappler. He's very good in his ability to chain submission attempts together, and he's opportunistic in looking for them. So he'll start looking for a submission, and if that one doesn't work, he'll go to the next one, But he's not burning a ton of energy, like trying to force things, trying to get people in position by just, cramming that submission, pushing the arm somewhere. He's letting you put yourself in the positions for the submissions, and he's very good about jumping on them when he needs to. He does have a very large toolbox on the ground, a lot of leg locks, arm bars, chokes, whatever. He's got it all. The dude can really mix in different options when it comes to that, and he can chain them all together very well. So the grappling of Benoit is fantastic. He can also use these attempts to sweep or just sweep from the bottom with, something like like the buck and counter or the buck and roll or whatever. He's very good at getting off the bottom, getting on top, controlling, and using his grappling to take advantage of fighters in these matchups. He does have decent takedowns, but the takedowns themselves are made better by the timing. He shoots them underneath strikes or will set them up with strikes of his own and then drop underneath. And he does a very good job of it. So, if you can come off that heavy cross and drop straight into that takedown, obviously you can't see where I'm going with my legs here, but if he'll be throwing like a 1-2, 1-2 right into the takedown, and it's seamless the way he does it. The timing is there. The timing makes those takedowns very good. So if he can get this fight to the mat, Benoit Saint-Denis has a really good chance of winning using his grappling here. But in the striking, I think he's going to be outmatched in the striking. Now, he has decent striking, don't get me wrong, and he's going to throw a lot of volume while he's moving forward. So Benoit does have he's not just kind of lost in the striking because he's very durable, can eat a shot if he needs to, which we've seen him eat quite a few in his career so far in the UFC, but he can eat a shot if he needs to and just keep walking forward, and he's going to use that volume moving forward, but I just think he's going to be outclassed in the striking department. But I do think he has a slight edge in the grappling. I don't know if it's enough, though, to win him this fight. So for me, the pick is going to be Ismail Bonfim, but like I said, I'm just going to watch this one. I'm a big fan of both these guys. I'm going to enjoy this fight, and I won't be surprised if either guy wins. This is a good fight. It's a close fight. And both guys are actually legitimate prospects in the UFC. So for me, the pick is Bonfim. Let me know what you guys think, and I would love to see you in the next fight. In the women's flyweight division, we have Ariane Lipski taking on Melissa Gatto. And I'm actually pretty excited about this matchup here. Lipski, she's 2-3 in her last 5, 3-1 and 1 draw for Gatto. This should be a good fight. Now, for Gatto, she's got good jiu-jitsu. She's very active off of her back, and she's quick to attack the subs. The problem is she doesn't really have the takedowns to get it there, but she doesn't have very good takedown defense. So when her opponents take her down, she's able to start working her submissions from her back, and that's kind of what she prefers to do most of the time. Her striking has developed. She's got decent striking, but the kicks in particular are the place that she's developed the most, so decent striking there. For Ariane Lipski, she's very inconsistent because one day she'll show up and just look fantastic, like she did against JJ Aldrich. And then sometimes she shows up and you're like, man, this girl's just laying there on the ground, just getting held down and beat on and not doing anything about it. She's hard to really predict, but we're going to do our best. She has good Muay Thai. She has very solid kicks. And when she strikes in flurries. And those flurries, they're pretty nasty when she hits you. She does strike very well. And I think strike for strike, I think Lipski is the better striker here. Now with the jiu-jitsu, it's a different story because it's very interesting. On the top, if Lipski gets on top, she's very dangerous with her submission game. Obviously, we know the knee bar finish that she had a while back. It was one of the most vicious knee bars we've seen in a while. But when she's on the bottom, she's not that good. So this is going to be interesting to me because, well, Gatto is pretty darn good off of her back, and Lipski's pretty dangerous on top. So if we do get a grappling exchange, I can see that being pretty wild. But I do think that with Lipski, if she shows up the way she did against JJ Aldrich, I don't think that Melissa Gatto is going to have an answer for Ariane Lipski. Lipski is inconsistent, like I said, so that does scare me some because, you don't know which one's going to show up. But she showed very good takedown defense in that match against JJ Aldrich. She showed the ability to hurt Aldrich on the feet with her accurate striking, her flurries of strikes. She did a very good job in there. And because of that, I'm taking Ariane Lipski, and I know she's a pretty big underdog. I don't know why. When I saw the line come out, and Lipski was an underdog, I don't know, like a couple of weeks ago when I saw, or maybe not when the line came out, but when I saw the line, Lipski was an underdog at like plus, what was it, like 130, 140, something like that. I dropped a quick bet on it, right? I went half unit. I'm like, okay, cool. I like her at that. I didn't do my tape study on this fight yet, but from what I remember in the old noodle here, Lipski's pretty darn good. Definitely off that last fight. Gatto's not too bad, but I think Lipski is an underdog. There's some value there. Now she's a really big underdog. She's like plus 195 or plus 200 or something like that. Well, so I guess I've looked at it again, and I said, well, I guess I better throw another half unit on her. So now I've got a whole unit on Ariane Lipski here, and I think she gets it done. I really do. I think she's safe for a single bet. I wouldn't parlay her up, but I think she's safe in a bet. Let me know what you guys think. Am I overlooking Gatto here? Am I missing something? If Lipski loses, is it just because of her inconsistency? That's what I think it would be. If she loses, it's because she's just not going to show up. But I do think she's going to get the win. Let me know where you're at. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll see you in the next welterweight. We have Max Griffin taking on Michael Morales. For Morales, he's that undefeated prospect. He's taken about a year off now to hopefully work on his game, kind of get those improvements that he needed to make. He's only 24, so he's got the time to improve yet. For Max Griffin, he's the aging veteran. He's 37 years old, but he's still 4-1 in his last 5. The only loss coming to Neil Magny, which no shame in that. Neil Magny beats a lot of guys. He's one of the better fighters in the welterweight division. So for Michael Morales, we're going to start with this side. He's a good striker. He's got a lot of power. In fact, he wins a lot of fights by knockout. He's got a lot of power, and a lot of it's because he starts working that jab, using those kicks as well after he gets the jab going. The one thing I don't like, though, is where his hands are. Keeps them right about here. So his hands are about here. So his striking defense, he gets hit a ton. So when he's getting hit, he's landing these big, powerful shots, but he's still eating a ton of them. And he's been able to hold up because he's durable. He's been able to kind of, make it through the fights and then get the finish later, or, make up for it and maybe get a decision. But the problem for Morales is this style of just eating a bunch of shots but hoping that you're going to land the harder shots and, maybe out-volume the other guy. It wasn't working for him. So he took about a year off, I assume, to work on that. Now, we don't know. He's one of those prospects. It's kind of weird because he's one of those prospects that he's undefeated, so he's like, should be hyped up, super, but like, he just hasn't quite delivered. Now, that doesn't make any sense because he's undefeated. He's won both of his fights in the UFC, won his Contender Series fight, but he just hasn't delivered. You know what I mean? If you guys know what I mean, let me know in the comments that you know what I mean, because for whatever reason, he just seems like he hasn't lived up to his potential, even though he's won every fight. I don't know. It's hard to explain. For his wrestling, though, we saw it a lot on the Contender Series. His control and ground and pound were very good. He struggled to get the fight to the mat early on. Couldn't get the guy down. But once he did, he was able to get on top, establish position, and then when he postured up to land the ground and pound, they were thudding shots, hit very hard. A lot of zip to his shots, you know what I mean? Like when he hit this guy, I can't remember what the heck that guy's name is off the top of my head. When he was hitting him, he was landing these shots with some thunderous power because he was patient and he picked his shots well. Now, sure, he landed a few of them to the back of the head, whatever, but even the shots that didn't land to the back of the head were very hard shots. The interesting part, though, is whenever his opponent would try to get back up, once he'd established the takedown, he would just drag him right back to the ground with a mat return and didn't have to worry about it. He was really hard to get off of him when once he got the opponent down. Tongue-tied there. So he's also hard to hold down. When he got taken down, he was able to reverse position, get on top, and then start working that ground and pound as well. So the wrestling is a good option for Morales, but unfortunately a lot of times he's used it when his striking just isn't delivering, when his striking just isn't doing enough. So like in the Contender Series fight, it was a close fight on the feet. He was getting hit a lot. Then he started mixing the wrestling out of need. Now, when you look at Max Griffin's a guy that you don't want to have to use your wrestling as a need. If you're mixing in the takedowns, whatever, to try and change the pace, mix things up, sure, that's one thing. But Max Griffin's got good takedown defense. He's a hard guy to take down. His wrestling's pretty solid in his own right. He can mix in his own takedowns. So if you're trying to get the fight to the mat because you need the takedown, Max Griffin's not the guy you want to do that to. He's going to make you pay for it because he's got good striking, particularly boxing. He doesn't throw a ton of kicks. But he's got decent power in his hands, not like knockout power, but he can rattle you, he can wobble you, get you stumbling. He's going to start working his jab early on, hitting that with a lot of volume and then setting up that 1-2, constant forward pressure while he's doing so, and he's a pretty durable guy. You're not seeing him get finished by a whole lot of people. Very durable, got good volume, just 1-2s, walking guys down. I think Max Griffin's going to be a tough test for a guy like Michael Morales. Here's the thing. If Michael Morales has improved over that year, you would hope that he's improved enough to beat Max Griffin, the guy who's 37 years old at the welterweight division. Sure, he's coming off of a 4-1 last 5 or whatever, but those are against some of the other aging veterans. I think like Tim Means was his last win, if I remember correct. Nothing against Tim Means, but Tim Means is also an aging veteran. So for me, I kind of have to lean the Morales side, and you have to assume that he's been working on some of his skill sets. Getting some things rounded out, figuring things out. Do you trust him at the price now? Because we're getting him at like lower than he was in his last couple of fights where he was like minus 1,000. Do you trust him at the price now and trust that he's been working on these things? Or do you say, you know what, I'll wait and figure it out next time because then you might not get as good a price, but it's a little safer. I'm going to take Michael Morales as the pick because I will assume that he's been working on these things. He's going to show up and do a little bit better. But like I said, if the Michael Morales shows up, that's getting close fights in the UFC against guys that, sure, he's getting the finish, but he's getting close fights in the UFC against guys that he should be beating quicker based on what the odds have been giving us. If that guy shows up, Max Griffin's a tough night out for him. I'm going to take Michael Morales, like I said. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think he's the prospect that the 14-0 record suggests? I'd love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments, and I will see you in the next fight. The co-main event of the evening in the lightweight division, we have Grant Dawson. He's taking on Damir Ismagulov. And if you haven't done so already, be sure to hit that like button for me. It really helps out the channel, shows your support, and helps this channel grow because it tells YouTube that, hey, people like this video and people like this channel, so maybe we should show it to more people. So please do that. I appreciate it greatly. Thank you. Let's go and break this down. Now, for this matchup here, we have Damir Ismagulov, who is coming back off of a retirement where he retired, had one fight left on his deal, decided, okay, guess I better come back, finish out my deal. So we're going to take another fight. We have Grant Dawson, who's on like a 10-fight winning streak or something crazy like that. This one's going to be an interesting fight. Both guys win a whole lot more than they lose. Only 2 losses in his entire career for Ismagulov, 1 for Dawson, and then he has the draw, so it's 1.5 if you want to go that route. Anyway, Grant Dawson here. Actually, real quick about Grant Dawson, he actually has 1 loss as an amateur as well to a guy named Matt Zarowski. That guy used to come to my gym, so, Matt, if you're seeing this, hey, what's up, buddy? Come back to the gym. I miss seeing you. But yeah, so as an amateur, he lost to Matt. Matt beat him up a little bit, got a unanimous decision. Anyway, back to the video here, back to the fight that we're breaking down. Grant Dawson, solid wrestler, okay? He's going to chain wrestle his way to getting on top of his opponents. He's going to shoot a ton of takedowns, just volume of takedowns, relentless, just keeps going. And why is that? Well, because he needs to get on top in a fight. He needs to get you to the mat, because once he does, he's got very heavy top pressure, and he's going to start trying to take your back. And once he takes your back, you're in trouble. He might start looking for the rear naked choke. He might just hold you there, just hit you in the face. Whatever he's got to do, once he gets on your back, you're in trouble. Once he gets on top, you're in trouble. Once he gets on your back, you're in serious trouble. And he's got good scrambles, too. So if you create a scramble, what's Grant Dawson going to do? He's going to try and hop to the next position, take that, and pull you down, get on your back, whatever. So the guy, you don't want to be in a grappling exchange with Grant Dawson. He's one of the better grapplers in the UFC at the 155-pound division, I would say, especially when it comes to control. Grant Dawson has excellent control. Now, when it comes to his striking, it's decent. It's improved a lot since he's moved down to Florida. Things have changed. We saw that leg kick as a new kind of wrinkle in his game when he fought Mark Madsen. His wrestling threat also just kind of sets up the striking, because if you're worried about the takedown and a guy starts looking like he's going to level change, you don't want to get the level change done to you, because then you're stuck on the dropping. So what are you going to do? You're going to start dropping your hands like this. And when they start doing that, they can open up the strikes over the top, come over with an overhand. That's why wrestlers like to throw overhands. It's because that fake takedown works well for that. So his wrestling does open up the threat of his striking. But realistically, the better striker is going to be Ismagulov. So, there's that. But durable. Grant Dawson's very durable. He does have a knockout loss in his career. It's only 1, and the dude's had a lot of fights. So, there you go. For Ismagulov, solid striking, but he works his best at range. He's going to work the long-rangey shots, the jabs, the kicks, things like that. He's going to work them in combinations, and he's going to mix them together. So the punches and kicks, he's going to put them in combinations together. Start a combo with a kick, end a combo with a kick, doesn't matter. He's going to do whatever he needs to do. He's very patient when it comes to his strikes, and he's going to find the right spots. He's not just going to blitz in and throw something crazy. He's going to find the spots that he needs, look for those. The problem is I don't think he's going to have the opportunity to be patient here, because Grant Dawson's just going to be on him just 100% of the time, like a dog on a bone kind of thing. The striking defense, though, is there for Ismagulov. So I don't think he's got to worry too much about here, but he's got to worry a whole lot about here, because that's going to take away here and here. So there's that. Now, when it comes to the wrestling for Ismagulov, he's pretty good in the wrestling as well. He can mix takedowns in with his strikes, and maybe he tries to mix in a takedown of his own to keep Dawson on the back foot, but he does have pretty good takedown defense initially. I just don't know how long they can hold that up against a guy like Dawson. For me, I think Dawson's going to win this fight, no problem. I think it's going to be way more of a one-sided matchup than a lot of people think. Maybe Ismagulov will land a couple of good shots early on, but after that, Dawson's going to start working takedowns. He's going to start dragging Ismagulov to the mat. The guy is coming back off of retirement. You know, one fight left on his deal. He's just going to fight out his contract, essentially, and then just ride off into the sunset. I don't think he gets past Dawson here. I think Dawson probably wins by submission. In fact, so I initially bet Dawson on the money line, a few weeks ago, right? As soon as the line came out. Got the money line, plus whatever the heck it was. It was pretty good. I'd have to go back and look. It was weeks ago, like I said. And then the props came out, and I was like, man, all right, let's see what the props are on Dawson by sub, because he wins a lot of his fights by sub. I know a lot of people are thinking he's going to win by decision, but I don't understand, because he's only got 2 decision wins, I think, his entire career. Otherwise, he's finishing guys. Well, by sub, it's like plus 400. So I was like, all right, well, let's hit that. And they're like, wow, but what if he knocks him out? All right, so I hit the sub line. Maybe I throw another one on Dawson to win inside the distance, just in case he knocks him out. It'll cover my sub bet, because it's like plus 240, plus 250, something like that. So I'm like 3 units deep on Grant Dawson at this point, because I put a whole unit on those, because why not, right? I think Grant Dawson gets this done. I think he's going to get the submission. Honestly, I think that's probably what's going to happen. It's going to be a rear naked choke, and I think he's probably going to get it in second round. That's where I'm at. Let me know what you guys have, and I'll see you in the main event. The main event, I'm actually really excited about this one, but real quick, last reminder to like this video. I appreciate the heck out of you. And one more favor I want to ask. Take this video, copy the link, and post it somewhere, or share it with somebody. I don't care if you post it in your office Slack channel. For all I care, you can post it anywhere. But post it somewhere that maybe somebody else can see it. Tell your friends about it. Put it in your homies group chat. Tell somebody, because guess what? This channel's got to keep growing, guys. We got to keep this thing going up. And with your help, we can do that. So thank you guys so much for watching. Let's go ahead and break down this main event. We have, at the 185-pound middleweight division, Sean Strickland taking on Abus Magomedov. For Magomedov, he's 4-1 in his last 5. He didn't fight super often, though, anymore, so a lot of those fights are a while back. And for Strickland, he's 3-2 in his last 5. Arguably should have been 4-1, but we're not here to argue that. He's 3-2 in his last 5. In this one here, let's start with the Magomedov side, because, well, he's on this side of the board, and that's what I tend to do these days. So, the dude's got good striking, okay? Magomedov is predominantly a striker. He's going to come forward. He's going to nasty kicks first off, but he's going to come forward with a blitzing style, and he's going to throw those kicks in that. So he's going to either start the combination with a kick, typically, then finish with the hands, or start with the hands, and then as the opponent's trying to retreat, finish out with the kick. He mixes those 2 things together very well, his punches and kicks, but he typically either starts or ends his combination with a kick. They're not mid-combo often. So, there's that. The dude hits pretty darn hard, and he's good from either stance. So he's going to be tough for a guy like Strickland to be able to outstrike just skill for skill. Get more on that in a minute. But skill-wise, his striking is pretty darn good. I probably should have done a little bit better than good. I probably should have went with like a solid or something like that. You know what I mean. But I didn't. I went with good, but he's a good striker. Heck of a striker. His wrestling. He's got good wrestling, and he tends to mix in the takedowns as a backup plan. So if his striking isn't working, or if he needs a change of pace to maybe catch his breath, or just kind of slow down where the pace of the fight, so he can then pick it back to where he wants it. So for Magomedov, we don't have a ton to go off of in recent memory, because most of his fights end just like that, because that's what he does. He tries to go out there and get the kill. So if you're betting on Magomedov in the first round, I don't blame you. That makes sense. The guy comes out and tries to kill. If you bet on him to win in the first 60 seconds, I don't blame you there. That's a pretty wild bet, but it might hit. Now, for Sean Strickland, opposite game plan. This guy's he's there for the long haul. He's got decent striking because, like, he doesn't have a whole lot in the arsenal. He throws a ton of jabs, just a ton. He establishes that jab early on. He'll start throwing the cross as he starts wearing his opponent down. But he's just typically, staying here and sticking that jab, not overcommitting to the jab. He's not overcommitting to any strikes. They're all just to touch you, to touch you, to touch you, touch you. We're just talking volume. You see how I was throwing that there, where it's mostly just a quick, whatever. I'm not loading up. I'm throwing them, That's what Strickland's doing. He's just walking you down, cutting off the cage, and just sticking that jab. Now, recently we've seen him throw a little bit more kicks. He's going to crowd most guys with his forward pressure, so they have trouble kicking, but he somehow is able to land his kicks, typically as he's forward pressuring them and they're trying to back up quick. He can stick a kick out there. Maybe it's a front kick, maybe he snaps a leg kick in there or something like that. But he started adding these kicks to his arsenal just a little bit more as of recent. But the thing that is interesting about Strickland is just the sheer number of volume that he can get off and not get hit that often. He has pretty good striking defense, except for the lead hook. He's wide open for lead hooks because he's trying to parry stuff out here, and that hook comes around that lead hand there because well, it's not coming from, it's coming out around the rear hand. Sorry, it comes around that rear hand and lead hand if he's standing in the southpaw stance, which Abus Magomedov is. But either way, his hands are out front here. So when his hands are out front trying to parry stuff, and he's parrying a straight shot, and then he's, next thing you know, he's got a hook coming at him. Well, those hooks are going to come around the guard because his hands are out front. So he's open to hooks, but anything up the middle, Strickland's really good about getting that off the center line. You've all seen the meme where it's like the iCarly thing or whatever. Yeah, I mean, it works pretty well for him on stopping straight shots. It's the hooks that he has trouble with. But he's really good about walking that opponent down, sticking the jab, like I said, and just putting the volume on. And that's what he's going to try to do here because he puts a high pace, he's got cardio, and he's got that constant pressure. Now, he has wrestling, and he can mix in a takedown if he needs to. He did it against Ismagulov, but he probably won't mix them in very often. Even when he's losing, he doesn't care to mix in the takedowns. He's just going to keep trying to strike you. It's rare that he does, but he does have solid takedown defense. So, if Magomedov's put on the back foot, and he's tired of getting put on the back foot and tries to shoot a takedown, he's going to have a tough time taking down a guy like Strickland. Here's the deal. Strickland should win this fight. Okay? He should win this fight. Why? Although they have a similar number of fights, Strickland's had a lot more fights at a high level in the UFC against very tough level of competition. Just saw something weird in the background. The only the weird thing here is that we don't know how Magomedov is going to do in the late rounds. I'm going to assume that he's got pretty good cardio. I'm going to assume that he's not just going to gas out. But I do think he's exceptionally dangerous at the start of each round, and especially the start of the first round, because Strickland hasn't been able to start working him over yet. He's going to be able to come forward. He's going to be able to land a big shot right out of the gate unless Strickland heads him off, steps off to the outside, something like that. So for Abus Magomedov, he needs to get it done early if he wants to do so before he starts eating a ton of volume and just starts backing up the whole time. For Sean Strickland, he needs to be very careful at the beginning of each round, get in the face of Magomedov, stop the kicks from coming because he's too close for Magomedov to kick him, and just stick that jab, land the two once he gets him just stepping back or whatever. If you can get him up against the cage, just tee off with the 1-2s. I think Strickland gets it done. It's not my most confident pick on the card, but I feel like he should more often than not. Let me know what you guys think. I know there's a lot of people that think Magomedov is probably going to win, and I don't really blame you. I get it. Hot young prospect coming up, working his way to the top. Big opportunity for him here. I appreciate you all tuning in. I still want to hear your picks. I want to hear your opinions. Let me know in the comments below. Plus, it helps the algorithm, so please do that. But yeah, I'll see you guys next week. We've got some fun stuff coming up. Go ahead and become a channel member. I appreciate that as well. Show your support with those neato little badges and the cool emojis and all that stuff. Pretty soon we're going to start doing live streams, but just we're waiting on something. I'll tell you about it next time. See you soon. Take care, guys. Appreciate it.